All right, welcome to our May TMN Tuesday event for all of our registered master naturalists, new in training, or even members of the public. We love to do these monthly webinars on different topics each month, and this one is definitely worth that extra couple of minute wait for figuring out those tech troubles. Ben has been a fantastic presenter, and I'll let Michelle tell you a little bit about him when we get into that. But first, to make sure that you as an attendee have the setup that you need to be able to participate in today's webinar. If this is your first TMN Tuesday, again, do not worry. You cannot unmute and you cannot share your video, and that is on design, on purpose, as we do have, as we mentioned earlier, over 1,000 people registered for today's event. So we're excited to have that much excitement for interpretation. But how do you ask questions, or how do you interact? Actually, I'm jumping ahead here. If you are seeing me move my hands and move my mouth and you still can't hear us, hopefully you can read this screen, and you are reading this screen now to check your audio setup. Make sure your speaker is plugged in. Of course, you can't hear me telling you to plug that speaker in, but hopefully you are getting your audio set up now, and we'll help in chat if we need to. But this is what I was trying to get to quickly. If you are an attendee today and you're not able to unmute, you're not able to share your video, how do you ask questions? Because trust me, you're going to have some great points for interaction today. We're going to use our chat function. Michelle and I will be moderating chat. Help us help you in chat. Use full and clear sentences, the best spelling and grammar your fifth grade teacher taught you, so that we can understand your question and get it asked as you intended. Can you tell that I was helping with homework last night? Please keep all chat on topic, and then let's all join in the conversation together. So if you select to everyone, it is an open group conversation with everybody on the call today. Last but not least, our TMN Tuesdays, as always, have the support of the WebEx Help Call Center and their FAQ page. This is also linked on our website. Okay, last little bit of run through before we get into our content. Our webinar etiquette for today, we've covered most of this already. You are not able to unmute, you are not able to share your video. We're going to use chat to interact as attendees with our speaker today. Help us with those, the chat, keeping it professional and respectful. We are recording today's content, as you can tell, and we'll have this up by the end of the day or first thing tomorrow morning for review. And there is AT credit for watching this as a live event or as a recording. With that, Michelle, you want to tell us what we're about to participate in today?
So today we have a great presenter and presentation coming at you today. Roving interpretation, making casual connections that matter. We've asked Ben Horstman with Texas State Parks. He's a regional interpretive specialist with Texas State Parks. And many of you, if you've attended the annual meeting, Ben has been a regular feature there and a great addition to our annual meeting, and a great presenter and educator on all things interpretive. So Ben, we're so glad to have you and have you at this statewide level presentation and above and beyond the annual meeting. So thanks for being here today. When we first asked Ben to present today, we gave him a whole list of things, and he has kind of narrowed that down for us today. So I'm excited to see his presentation. And go ahead to the next slide. I'll cover those. I saw those. I'll cover them.
Yeah, thanks. There you go.
If you're new to the Master Naturalist program, or if you're haven't yet become a member, we welcome anyone to become a member at any time. You can see our mission here on the screen. If you are interested in becoming a member, find your local chapter, and you can do that by checking out our website there. On that page, once you get to that page, you just scroll down, find the chapter that's nearest you, and apply to that chapter to get involved. This event today is part of our TMN Tuesdays, our monthly TMN Tuesdays presentation. This counts as advanced training for our Master Naturalists, and if you're new to the program, our Master Naturalists are required to get at least 8 hours of advanced training on an annual basis. And this is one of the offerings that we have through our state office. So the second Tuesday of every month, we offer our TMN Tuesdays. And today is one of those days, and you can see the upcoming months coming ahead. So with that, May's speaker is Ben Horstman, our regional interpretive specialist with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. So I'm going to turn it over to Ben.
Hey y'all, well, thank you so much. I'm gonna fumble my way through sharing here, but done this at so many chapter meetings, so I should be able to get this going. There we go. That looking okay to everybody? Okay.
Looks great.
I just see chat, but we can make that happen. Okay, well, I'm just going to rely on Michelle and Mary Pearl to let me know when any issues come up. But just a little bit more of my background. I have been doing this for 22 years, 23 years probably. But I've been an interpreter, and I'll say this every time I do an interpretive talk. Everybody's an interpreter at some point, right? We try to get people on our sides and in natural resource interpretation, which is mainly what y'all are doing, that is getting them on the side of the resource. And so started off with my grandmother, going to my grandmother's farm, and basically my cousin, the next farm over, would come over with the four-wheeler, pick me up, and we would just be in the woods for the rest of the visit there. He became a game warden in Washington State, and I became a park ranger in Texas. So we loved the outdoors, but apparently neither one of us loved Iowa. So we got as far away as we could. But it is a wonderful place, and just not a lot of opportunities for conservation jobs there. I have worked for the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. I've worked for the Army Corps of Engineers. And then I came to Texas because Texas had a dedicated interpreter position at parks, which is a pretty crazy idea when you're looking at parks that in some cases have, in Iowa, we had 2 full-time employees. But if you're ever wondering what your entrance fee goes to, it's the phenomenal opportunity to have dedicated interpreters at a site. And in my region, the South Texas region, we have 17 interpreters at 12 sites. Those interpreters do everything from natural resources, lots of bird walks and wildflower walks and those types of things. But we also do have historians for instance, at Goliad, that do a lot of cultural resources as well. So that is kind of my passion, and to share that with a bunch of interpreters, those 17, it's actually 17 and a half positions, but I don't like to say I have 17 and a half interpreters, but we try to train them and make sure that they have the best principles, the best practices as they do their programs and interpretation in their site. My region goes from Lockhart down to the valley. It goes from Laredo over to Port O'Connor, which will be a new state park in a number of years at Powderhorn State Park, which we're very excited about. There are very few times in your life where you get to decide that how somebody is going to experience a park from the get-go, and that's been the most exciting thing for me. And we're very excited to have the next Master Naturalist meeting in my region. It's pretty awesome. I'm gonna be down there. I'm sure we're gonna be visiting a lot of the sites that are near and dear to my heart down there in the valley, and we're gonna get to see and meet a lot of the interpreters that I have in the valley. So super excited about that, and it's gonna be nice not having to travel quite so far to get to these annual meetings. So really going to be a cool visit down there. So one of the things that we talk about in interpretation a lot is kind of like, how do you reach people, right? And how we talk about the logistics of it. We talk about the essentials of interpretation, things like that, getting into the nitty gritty. If you've taken CIG before, that's 32-hour course of how to teach or how to be a good interpreter and interpretive guide. And what we leave off a lot of times is the little stuff. And when we go through this, I'll kind of give you some of the reasons why we talk about roving interpretation. We'll talk about, I'll skip to it here. We'll talk about what it is using Bradley's 7 principles of roving interpretation. If you've never met her, Danielle Bradley, which is now Danielle, and she's now Danielle OK. She just got married. She developed 7 principles of roving interpretation as part of her master's thesis at SFA. And so we'll go over those. We'll go over how we do it and look at some real life examples. And hopefully you will have some examples of how you do it in your sites, because you are definitely doing it, whether you think you are or not. And then sorry, I'm trying to shut something off here. Sorry. And then we'll go over different ways that you can do it. So we'll brainstorm a little bit. It's a little harder when we do it on this virtual setting to do the brainstorming, but we're gonna give it the old college try here as we get going. All right. So first of all, what is it? You know, a lot of people think of roving interpretation when we talk about it. When we talk about it to our staff and things like that, they don't think of it as anything that can be planned, and it really is something that is planned, and we'll get a little bit more into that. But it is a planned, personalized communication with the visitor in an informal setting. This is what master naturalists do the most, right? We do have several master naturalists that go into a site and do programs for us. I think about Art doing his castle tours at Lake Corpus Christi. Fantastic resource for us. You know, Randy and Dawn Bissell doing their doing several different types of programs at our sites here in the Coastal Bend. So we do have them doing that, but we also have people that will just man a booth. Lake Corpus Christi had their Kid Fish in January, and we had a master naturalist booth there where there's just a bunch of, for lack of a better term, dead stuff sitting on the table, and they talk about that. It attracts people to come in. People, whoa, that's a big thunderbolt just hit right outside here. Sorry, this is, some of you are not experiencing this, but we just got a good storm coming through. It's good rain. But this is what a lot of you do as master naturalists when you're doing interpretation. Not a ton are standing in front of a group of people and doing that stuff. Yeah, I'm interpreting this crazy late. So if power goes out, luckily I have some backup options here, but that was a pretty big boom outside my apartment. So this is also audience driven, right? So instead of us deciding what we are going to say, what we're going to be doing, or what we want them to know, a lot of times it's set up so that we can have those conversations about the resources that they care about. And if you've taken my interp training, a lot of times, you know, in my interp hikes or interp tours of sites, a lot of times I will let them lead it, because I think that's where you get the best connections, is something that they're really interested in doing. So I think that's a really key point to this, is that it's really driven by them. We have this opportunity for you just to be out there. Somebody will come up and ask you a question. It's really their interest. So there's 7 basic principles in Bradley's principles. We'll see if she changes it to the OK principles, but I don't think she will. They're just trying to help you kind of guide yourself through how to get ready for roving interpretation. So if you're going to a site, let's say, and I'm going to use a lot of Coastal Bend examples, but say if I'm going to Blucher Park, I know some of the things that people are going to be asking about, right, when they come to that thing. Or if I go to Mustang Island and am working the table with the master naturalist there, I know a lot of things that they're going to be asking about, so I can prepare for that stuff. It's also inspired by Tilden. If you have not read Interpreting Our Heritage, that's something you really should do. Freeman Tilden is pretty amazing, amazing guy, and kind of the father of interpretation, or grandfather of interpretation, really. If you were lucky enough, he did speak to, was it Master Naturalist in Corpus Christi that that Walt Dabney spoke to the group there? I think that was it, but really phenomenal visit there. Okay, so the first principle here is roving interpretation. Interpretation is organized and planned in advance. And again, this is one of those things that gets a little confusing to people, that how can it be impromptu? How can it be just like random if it's, how can we make it feel spontaneous if we're planning it ahead of time? And it doesn't mean that we're planning every little detail of it and we're not scripting out stuff, which you should never do in interpretation, really. It's not scripting it out, but it's being ready for a lot of the issues that may come up, a lot of the questions that may come up. Here's us standing in front of this historic CCC building. This is Sam Gonzalez and I, probably her first day. I think she doesn't even have the green pants. The having a knowledge of that site really helps us understand it, but people coming up to us is going to be completely spontaneous. Plan the location, the visitor needs, any props that you have. It's a great opportunity to capitalize on seasonal stuff. I think this is actually our first day hike. We were getting ready for, but we were kind of hanging out and just chatting with people as they came up. Another, some great times are when we have our centennial events that's coming up at a lot of our parks. We've had about half of them so far. We'll have another half coming up. A great one that's going to be coming up is our S'mores Day this weekend. This coming weekend is 100 s'more years of Texas State Parks. Excuse the pun, I didn't come up with that, but it is our huge event where I think every park in our region and almost every park throughout the state is going to be doing some sort of s'mores catered event coming up. And HEB has actually sent out s'mores materials to tons and tons of parks where their friends group couldn't help them with it. So it's going to be an exciting event, but there's going to be so many of those spontaneous roving encounters with people at those parks. And then, just coming up with ways of what things that you're going to put in your bag. I know that I have trunks in my office that a park can just have. We have backpacks. I know that when I was in a park, I had a backpack filled with just little stuff and would just go out on the trail. And if somebody had a question about certain things, I could pull something out of that bag and talk to them about it. Sometimes they would just be staring at a certain tree and would talk to me about that or ask me about that tree. And I could show them pictures of what that tree looked like when it was blooming, what that tree might, what organisms that tree might be a host for. So having those things kind of in a bag, and we'll talk about kits in a little bit. So it should be scheduled. I know that a lot of times, I know when I go out there and I'm birding, sometimes roving is not scheduled, but I know that if I'm out birding on my own, not as an employee, I'm going to run into these roving issues or these roving encounters, these opportunities, whether I plan it or not. So I just kind of know that when I'm out there, it's scheduled. The reason that it's important, especially for our interpreters to do this, is that it ensures that you have the time for it and you're not going to be in a rush to go talk to somebody else, right? Or you're in a rush to get somewhere else. There have been times when I have been like, yep, I'm going birding, but I'm really going for this life bird that's at the end of the trail. I have to like know that there are times when I will be stopped to talk to somebody because that's just who I am. It may not be work time. I just am that kind of a person, and drag those people along to see the life bird. But it also gives added emphasis that you'll spend one-on-one time with the visitor. You're not in a rush to get to the next point. So let's take Blucher again. If I'm going to Blucher and I am doing that as a, well, let's take a better one where I am on work time. During spring break, went over to Big Tree. I set aside 2 hours a couple of days during spring break because I knew it was going to be busy to leave my office, which I know is such a pain to have to leave the office and go stand in front of Big Tree at Goose Island, but go stand there and wait for visitors' questions. Ask them if they had questions, but most of the time it was me just waiting to see if they did have questions. Otherwise, I was kind of getting in the way of this wonderful experience of them walking up to the tree and walking around the tree. So making sure that I made time for every person that came in there took me setting aside 2 hours for that day. And a lot of times, at least one of the days, it turned into 4 hours very easily because there were that many people there. So I wanted to make sure that I was scheduling time for that. And we have gone to great strides to make sure that our interpreters have the ability to do that. It seems weird when Sam says to people that are in management or even the people that have to clean bathrooms or something like that, that she is going to go walk the trails for 2 hours, right? That seems weird, but it is such an important role that she plays out there on the trails for that visitor experience. So she will schedule it for the peak times when there's a lot of people there and there's going to be a lot of contact. Sometimes it's peak times at a certain place, like me going to Big Tree, but we want to make sure that it's scheduled. So what we're looking for on number 3 is the benefits of this. Like, why is it worth doing that? What's the purpose of it? And we know if you've taken your initial course in interpretation, and hopefully you have. If you haven't, if you're in my region, you probably will get it from me. If you come to the statewide, you can take my class on it, or you can take any of the other wonderful classes. I can just off the top of my head, Epley Institute has a Foundations of Interpretation class that's a 2-hour course, online course that's free. But if you read Annie of Tilden, or if you want to even go farther and do certified interpretive guide training, that week-long training, it is expensive, but really in depth and great. Anyway, we know that the benefits of interpretation are there, but what are they? We can address safety concerns in the parks. My first thought whenever we say this goes to Peladero Canyon and how many rescues they have to have at Peladero Canyon during the summer months, particularly the heavy summer or that really hot summer months. So they will do roving at the trailhead that goes out into the backcountry, where somebody will stand there all day and just talk to people about the heat concerns that they have. Same thing happens in the really hot days at E-Rock, Enchanted Rock. If you've ever been there, the rock is this magical place, but it's super hot and can be really horrible outcomes if you're not ready for how hot it is up there. And that's for yeah, I'm sorry, the 2-hour course is Epley Institute for Parks, I believe. If you type in Epley, Eppley, yeah. So the idea that we can address those safety concerns, even if it's like out in out at the beach at Mustang, you know, we've got rip currents. Let's go ahead and put somebody out there that will stop people that don't understand what the flag means, the flag system means, to make sure that we don't have any incidents there. There is a resource benefit, and for some people, this is more important than the visitor safety element. I personally am a visitor services person, so yeah, both of these are really important. You can see what can happen to a resource at one of our really busy parks that are loved to death. And so we can, by placing people out in places that have high traffic, that can have significant impact from the visitor on the resource, we can curtail some of those issues ahead of time so that we don't have to worry about those resources being damaged as much. I mean, at some of those places, they're just so busy all the time that we're going to have it, but we can try to limit that. So this is a little question for y'all. What are some of the resource issues that we run into at some of your sites? Do we have any?
I can help read some of these for you, Ben.
That would be great.
Yeah, Letty says potties on the trail. Kathy says
Potties.
dogs running loose, littering, off-leash dogs.
Dogs is a big issue.
Ooh, this one's interesting. Archaeological significant objects being found.
Huge.
People leaving the trails, picking flowers or picking up items, getting too close to the alligators. That's definitely a coastal chapter.
And some of those are both visitor and resource benefits, right? If we can curtail them getting too close to an alligator.
Yeah, and then the
Yeah,
last
so
one
that's-
that I see is building their own trails.
Yeah, right. And we had a pretty significant one at one of our parks where somebody decided that there'd be a great place for a mountain bike trail in the backwoods. And without anybody noticing, had built a mountain bike trail in one of our parks that we didn't even know about. So we had that's been a long process of litigation and our legal team and all of that stuff to take care of that issue. And so, yeah, all of that could be solved by just, not all of it, let's say a lot of it could be solved by just having people out there talking. And in a lot of cases, we don't have interpreters at every park, so we can't do that. And that's where master naturalists would come in, volunteers would come in. We do have some signage, but I can tell you as somebody who designs signs that there are not a lot of people that sit and read a sign very well. Sometimes they look at the picture and they just go right by it. And so signage is not going to help as much as a ranger or a volunteer being out there. So we want to make sure that that we're helping and we have those goals in mind, those benefits in mind. The next is public relations. And so for lack of a better way to say this, it's just pure joy for an interpreter to be able to do that. It is one of the best things you get to do. You don't have to do a ton of preparation for it. You don't have to worry if nobody shows up because you're kind of just hanging out there and getting to experience the resource and learn about the resource while you're out there. But you also are a good face. You have good face time with the visitors, right? Our interpreters are the face of our parks. So are our clerks a lot of times, but they're the ones that are going to be the most contact out in the field, at least. So they get to spend a lot of time with people and they get to learn some of the issues that might be happening. Because not everybody fills out those surveys. There are a lot of people that fill them out, and I get to read them every week. When you go to a state park, you get a survey to fill out, and we do get comments on that. But this is a really great way to just have that one-on-one with somebody, and have that good FaceTime with them. And that again is the audience. The next part of it, we get insight. Yeah, again, that's a great point, is meeting people from all over the place, right? When you get to, I mean, we did our big sit at Goose Island Saturday, and a family from Germany came in. In fact, I was scrambling because I didn't have all of my books have translation into Spanish and French, but they don't have German. So we were scrambling to get some of the translations for some of the bird species we were looking at out there. But yeah, what an amazing experience. And just talking to them and how their experiences have been in Texas were really cool. So yeah, you get to see, yeah, Craig Hensley is going to come up a lot in when you talk about interpretation. What a great interpreter. But yeah, gaining insight into what's going on at your park is really important as well. Anybody think of any other benefits that might come up? The pure joy for an interpreter, that's really the reason that I do it every single time, is I can get out of my office and spend time with people. Yeah,
There's
it's
also
just
a
fun.
few comments I missed, Ben, on some trail safety notices about
Yeah.
stinging or biting plants
Sure.
or insects or species.
Yeah, we tried it. One of the things we have to really be careful of is that we're not giving them a reason not to go out there, and we're not like pointing out all of the bad things that they're going to run into out there, right? Because people already have a reason not to be in our parks, right? They're scared, and we don't want to add to that fear. So making sure that we address those things is important, but also in a way that is not something that's going to be creating more fear for them to go out there. So yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, great. You know, brochure with QR codes. We have been really hesitant about QR codes for a while there, and now we're starting to embrace them a little bit more. It took a while until we had cameras now that automatically detect it. You used to have to have an app to open it. Yeah, good. Okay. Number 4. Yeah, that light bulb is a big part of my Interp 101. So we're going to reach different people with this, and that's number 4 here, is that it reaches new audiences, and this is a big one. Is about 20% or less than 20% of our visitor contact comes from these programs. Like Jamie is doing a program here, a sit-down program where people are invited to come in, and the talk lasts about 45 minutes to an hour, something like that. Those people are in the minority. I personally, and do not tell my bosses this or my interpreters this, if hopefully none of them are on here right now, but I don't go to programs when I go to parks on my own. I do enough of that at work, and I like to explore on my own. A lot of my resource knowledge is already there. I kind of already have that ethic, so I don't go to those programs. I won't say ever, but not nearly as much. And so I would be somebody that would be completely missed by if we just focused on these programs. In Texas state parks, I think last year we had 400,000 or 500,000 contacts with visitors, and it was less than 100,000 of that were through our programs. So that's a very different audience. Those people are really interested and will a lot of times be those roving contacts may come to your program later. I used to do I used to do like Friday evenings at the park that I worked at 12 years ago or 13 years ago. Friday evenings, I would walk around to every single campsite and do roving interpretation. And in that, I would encourage them to come to my program on Saturday morning where they could learn a little bit more. And a lot of times that worked. But I will tell you that that Friday evening walk was so much more important than with the programs that I had, right? That was kind of the next step for people. It's going to create personalized discovery opportunities for the visitor in that we are going to be on their level rather than them learning what we want them to learn. It's going to be them learning what they want to learn, right? So that's a huge one. And then when you're going through trails, campgrounds, and stuff, you can, as I was just saying, you can personally invite people to programs, but you can also figure out what your program audience is going to be. So I knew that, there were 20 kids in the camping loop. When I went and talked to them, I knew what my next program was probably going to have because I had already talked to so many of them. Okay, number 5, the more you know the location, the better the discoveries. And so this is really about you knowing your resources. You are going to be out there learning this stuff as you do this roving, and you're going to learn from the questions that come in. So it's important for you to have an in-depth knowledge that kind of helps visitors make discoveries, but it really is part of it. The learning is from you as well, right? So when you're out there doing roving, people will ask you the same questions over and over, and you will make those discoveries with them. And then the next person that asks that question, you'll be more ready. You'll be readier to deal with that question and have that knowledge ready for them. What are some potential roving locations at your sites where you go to? Any ideas? And there's a couple of questions that have been coming in. Oh yeah, Ben Oaks Rookery, definitely. There's been some questions coming in that are kind of about other stuff that I do, and I will definitely help answer some of those later. Yeah, certainly trailheads. Pollinator garden, what a great one, especially when it's really good butterflies. Yeah, Turnbull, I think I saw in there. Yeah, if you go to the tower at Turnbull, observation decks, yeah, you guys kind of got it. Believe it or not, one of the great places that we do is bathrooms, because that's a lot of times when you're going to meet the most amount of people is kind of, I mean, don't stand right outside the door of the bathroom, but kind of where the restroom is a gathering place for a lot of people. And there are people standing around waiting for their kids or their partners to get out of the restroom, and they will ask a lot of questions when they do that. So we'll do restrooms as well. The more you do this, the more discoveries you're going to make. I already kind of talked about some of that stuff. Look from the perspective of the visitor. Like, I know that if I go into Goose Island or if I go into some of these parks that I've been going to for 12 years, I know exactly where I want to go and what I want to see. But my interest is not what the visitor's experience will be necessarily. So make sure that you, and this is kind of tailored towards interpreters, but you as a master naturalist or a site manager, or even just a person that does interpretation at a site, make sure you're looking at it from the first time visitor's experience in that location, and kind of see what they would be interested in. Number 6 is plan for the less obvious ones. Yeah, stores is great. So less obvious curiosities of the visitor. I know that there's a lot of weird things that come up when park rangers have lots of great stories about this, of like, I'll be leading somebody on a bird walk and we will see a little chunk of fungus, and that will take up 20 minutes of our day, especially when you've got little kids. So make sure that you're ready to adapt to that kind of thing. And that's why a lot of times when I do walks, do tours, it's very general, because it can be derailed pretty easily. And if you're very scripted, or if you've got all these plans, they will fall apart pretty quick when you have something weird happen. So anyway, experience is the best teacher. You're going to run into all of those things and ask all these questions, or people are going to ask different questions to you. Every time they ask a question, that's an opportunity for you to learn. Why are people coming to this location? Like, why are people going to Big Tree? Well, duh, it's a giant tree. It's a pretty amazing tree, but that's not necessarily the only reason people are going there. Are they going there because maybe it's the time that the whooping cranes are out? Are they going there because there's some butterfly areas in the back? So kind of be ready that there are going to be people that are there for a different reason than you. I always think about Turnbull Birding Center, right? People come to Turnbull Birding Center, and one would think you're going there for the birds, but a lot of them are there to see that big alligator, which I think is named Boots. I'll have to check on that, but I'm pretty sure the huge, probably 12-foot alligator, 10 to 12-foot alligator is a big attractant to people. And so you may be out there on the deck and just want to talk about all of the birds that are out there, which is phenomenal. And I'm always amazed by birds. I'm a bird nerd. But then people are staring down at this thing that's not even moving, right? It's just laying there. You have to be ready for that and be ready to talk about that if that's where you're going to be doing your roving. No matter how many times you've heard the question, it's the first time they're asking it. Just remember that. We have to say this a lot to people, and really this is a customer service thing as well. There's a lot of people that ask the same questions, and I am of the opinion that there is no dumb question. We will sometimes get an odd question or two, and sometimes get those over and over, but we want to make sure that this may be the first time that they've asked that, and we approach it the same way with everybody. And then number 7 is keep assessing your audiences. Like, if they are, if you're getting some negative reaction or even positive reaction, you can adjust what you're talking about at those sites, right? So if I'm at the site at Big Tree and all of a sudden something has happened at another state park, or for instance, all of the stuff that's been going on in one of our parks in particular lately, there is a change in what people are asking. And so just be ready for that. And once you start seeing that happen, maybe you can be a lot more ready for it. So, and even weather can change that thing. The fact that the whooping cranes are not standing out in the field can change that. And so diverting some of those people can be a good way to deal with that. Yeah, know when it's time to end the conversation. So there's a thing that I talk about in my intro to interp, and it's interpret torture. And a lot of times, no, I shouldn't say a lot of times, some interpreters, some educators are doing it because it shows that they're smarter than the person they're talking to. So they just keep throwing facts at them and kind of corner them. And this shouldn't be you cornering them to talk at them, just like any interpretation should be. It's making sure that this is their experience and they are free to walk away whenever they want. And so some of the clues, you know, we're kind of short on time, but some of the clues that I always look for is like, okay, oh, that's neat. And some of those phrases that people use. Now, if you're like from the Midwest, like I am, that just means we've got another 20 minutes. When people start putting on coats and stuff like that, that's the Midwestern goodbye. But if we're if we're talking about that, we can start seeing the kids acting up a little bit more. They're starting to get antsy. That's time, and just make sure you give them the opportunity to walk away. Um, the ways that you can kind of disengage with a visitor, because we have master naturalists that are like this sometimes, but certainly there are a lot of people that just cannot wait to talk to a ranger, cannot wait to talk to an interpreter, talk to somebody about the experience they've had, and that's wonderful. But we have to make sure that we're not taking away all of the time from some other person. And yeah, showing them an opportunity to explore on their own. Maybe it's a time for you to, push them towards becoming a master naturalist because they love to share so much, being a volunteer at the park. But yeah, we want to make sure that we can disengage and get to the next visitor, so we don't have one person that's taking up all of our time. So sounds great in theory, but what about in real life? These are some of the examples of what we do in what we call roving in our parks. There's another example here that's our visitor centers or nature centers. Is also technically roving. A lot of times we don't count it as that because we actually have when we do our big reports at the end of the month, we actually have a separate category because it's a little different experience in there, but it really is roving. But roving on trails, roving with props, at park features, information tables, when you do a big event, that's a type of roving. You have these are some of the things that we do in our parks, but what are some of the things that you do in your areas when you go out there to talk to people? Any ideas or any examples? I saw Laura on here. Where do you do roving? She
She
bailed.
won't, yeah, she won't be able to unmute, but she can let us know in text chat.
Yeah.
There's always a little bit of a delay as folks are typing in things.
Yeah. Well, I just 45 minutes into this figured out where my chat button is. Now I can see the chat. Great job.
Here we go.
While we're waiting for some items to come in, Ben, there was one question in the chat about there was an individual who received a certified interpretive guide certification, and they have since moved and haven't kept up their membership with NAI. What would be their process to make their CIG certification current now?
Okay. So there's a couple of ways to look at that. One is, your certificate, you've taken the class. And so to maintain the certification does cost money, and your membership may be worth more than that, the stuff that you get from being a member. If you do want to recertify, there are ways to do that. If you go into NAI, their National Association for Interpretation, if you go to their website, it'll teach you different ways to do that. Sometimes you can I think there's a couple of ways you can do it, but I know that sometimes we have ours just audit a course, audit CIG, which is just the same. You just don't have to do the program scoring at the end of it. But there are certain people that they just don't renew it, and that's not the end of the world if you're not a certified. My big thing is that you took it and that you got that experience. That's probably not what NAI wants me to say. Is yes, you should certify every 4 years, but certainly the fact that you took it is a huge thing.
So Laura has replied while
interpreters
answering that question, and she said, "We head out to our observation tower or Heron Flats, especially when the whooping cranes are here, and sometimes take props. And then we also station volunteers, often master naturalists, at popular stops along the auto tour on the weekends. They bring spotting scopes and field guides."
Yeah, that's just a wonderful example of it. And we, I think every park should have that in certain places, especially for the whooping cranes. They have a spotting scope, because somebody that just comes along is not going to have that opportunity necessarily to see the whooping cranes. And that's what we'll do over at Big Tree, to see the whooping cranes over there. But any birds or any resources out there, to have a different way or a better way to see the stuff is great. Okay, so let me move on a little bit here. So this is the roving and touch tables. And we got a few minutes left. So the roving and touch table, this is something that like we would have out at a special event, if we were going to Earth Day Bay Day, or if you guys were going to one of our centennial events, and you would have a table of stuff that people can talk about, or that you can talk about to people. A lot of times it will bring people up if they see furs on the table. That is something that really is like a magnet to kids, especially to see furs or skulls or things to touch. That's super exciting. And make sure that you have, I mean, I think that a lot of our parks would have a trunk that has this stuff in it, where they just pull up, unload it, and that's it. I know that at the Centennial event at Mustang, and I think at Lake Corpus, the Master Naturalist down here had a trunk that just had all of the stuff in it that they wanted to talk about. So make sure that you do have that stuff, but also, you know, the different things down here at the bottom that talk about what they can do next, like the Junior Ranger books and badges, maybe brochures that will tell them where to go next to the park. Obviously, that's why you're at those events a lot of times, but yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can take to that, but also bring a clicker so you can count how many people come to your event. We keep track of it in our interpretive reports, and it is fairly important. Roving by park feature, we're using a prop. These are pretty nice props to have. I can tell you Chill Canyon does not have a Harris Hawk. This just happened to be at one certain time where they were doing a raptor show, and she got to hold it. But we also, you know, obviously at a kid fish, as Trent is holding the fish over here, you know, being able to show them a fish is pretty crazy cool. And Deanne, yeah, that's another good thing. First aid, bug spray, Clorox cleanups, trash bags. That's great. All right. On trails, make sure that you have this stuff available to you in a backpack so that you can be mobile. You're going to talk more about resource protection here, visitor safety. Then the end here is just kind of all of those resources like first aid, radio, extra water, snacks. I would add a garbage bag or garbage bags so that you can be the example as you pick up trash along the way. Love to see rangers that are out there picking up trash as they're walking. It's great. Something that I'm not the greatest at sometimes. The scheduling, again, 1 to 2 hour blocks. Make sure that you are ready to do the stuff. And if you're going to do this out on a trail, that you're doing it for the amount of time that you're capable of, right? Sometimes it's scheduling that gets in the way of our interpreters doing this stuff, but for a volunteer, just make sure you're not overdoing it out there. And remember that when you're out there, there is something to be said about people just having an experience on a trail. So making sure that we're not stopping everybody that's on the trail, but just saying, hey, do you have any questions? Or just saying hi. Some people will want to stop and talk to you. If they don't, they're out there enjoying the trail. That's great.
Hey, Ben, I actually had a question on that earlier in the chat. Somebody asked, how do you recognize those folks that don't want or don't need interpretation? How do you recognize that they're there just for the experience?
Yeah, so like when you're out on a trail, you will know based on the fact that they'll just kind of say hi and keep walking. They won't slow down at all. They will a lot of times not even make eye contact with you. And sometimes that's just a time you say hi and just keep on walking. Um, you know, sometimes it's easy enough to just say like, hey, any questions? And then, or beautiful day, isn't it? And then that's it. Out on a trail, that will happen. The good thing about tabling is that if they're not interested, they just won't walk up to you. And the same thing would happen in a campground. As I was going to do roving through campgrounds, was I would know when they didn't want to talk to me. You can pretty clearly tell, just by body language and whether they're making eye contact with you. Sometimes it's for the wrong reasons, like they don't want to get in trouble for something. But you can kind of tell when people don't want to engage. Hopefully you can. Sometimes it's going to be a little tougher, and sometimes people are shy to do that, especially kids. So sometimes it does take the, hey, is it, do you have any questions? And then just making sure you move along. This is how we record stuff and how we deal with supervisors. I'm not going to go into that too much. Although I did get a question earlier of how we record our interpretive contacts, and I will go into that if we do have more questions. I'm kind of running out of time here, but I do have some worksheets that I'm going to give to, or I'm going to drop in the chat if I'm really good at it. That kind of give you a plan. So it's roving interpretive plan for your site, but also some kit plans. So like tabling or roving interpretation plans that you can just fill out, and they'll give you kind of a plan of what you're going to take to a park or what you're going to take to a tabling event. And then also like how to schedule roving at a site and what you're going to be looking for. But I'll drop those in the chat if I can. And then this is me just like absolutely fawning over my nephew Mac here. Does anybody have any questions for me? I know that's a lot of stuff. Yeah, Kathleen, that's a good point. I would say like, seen anything cool today? And especially with kids, they can't wait to tell you what they've seen. Let me try to drop these things in the, I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see if I can share.
While you're doing that, Michelle and I can pull a few questions out of chat. There's some
Yes.
great kudos coming as you're wrapping up your presentation. Lots of thanks as well.
Okay, so let me see if I can just drop it in there. You just drop in the chat? No.
I think we've gotten quite a few of the questions. I'm trying to find some of them from earlier on. We've covered a lot of this stuff already, which is great.
Do you know how I load something up? I just have some files that need to be dropped in.
You can't load into WebEx.
Oh, okay.
But if
Okay.
you send us the documents, I'll get those
Will do.
put on our TMN Tuesday page here in the next hour or so.
Okay, sounds great.
I did find a comment that it's not a question, it's more of a comment, but Kathy shared it's also helpful to know when the kids are tired and the parents are tired.
Yeah, I used to do programs on Sunday mornings specifically so that the parents could be away from their kids and set like breakdown camp and everything without having the kids there.
Cool.
Because they were exhausted.
What camp are you? What park are you at this weekend?
Yeah, right. Yeah, sorry.
My family and I are doing Garner for we specifically signed up for the s'mores event
Lots of
in
other
Mother's
people.
Day. So
yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, because it's Mother's Day too. So,
yep.
But yeah, you should be able to get s'mores. In fact, I just saw, I don't know where I was watching it, but after the coronation, that the princes and princesses did s'mores somewhere. It was pretty cool.
It was the National Big Give Day. They had their big volunteer day.
Yeah. Yep.
For
It's
those
the day
asking for
before
more
Mother's Day.
information about
Yeah.
those asking for more information about the s'mores, I'll drop that link in the chat as well. That's a Texas Parks and Wildlife State Parks. Say the funny pun for me again.
It's 100 s'more years. So this is our centennial year. I didn't talk about that as much, but every park is having an event this year. About halfway through that. We were going to do like Guinness Book of World Records, but there were so many details that we had to do that made it less fun.
And cost, right?
And
Cost,
cost,
too.
exactly. Yeah, it was going to cost us a ton just for them to tell us what we were going to have to do. And we just said, nah, we'll just have fun without you. And it should be great. We have several parks that are doing it as part of their centennial event. So I'll be at Falcon for their centennial event, but we're going to do s'mores as part of that as well.
I'm not finding any other questions in the chat for
who
you.
made
You did
better
so great.
interpreters, men or women? Not going to answer that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, super fun.
Well, this has been great, Ben. And
Yeah.
again, I want to plug your attendance at the annual meeting this year as we're coming into your backyard in McAllen.
Exciting.
It's always fun to get down there and to bring it back home to some of your state parks that are down there. We're so excited to get to see some of the gems that are in the valley.
Oh yeah, just a green jay for so many people is going to be awesome for people to see a green jay. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what kind of moths and things that Sam and Craig can pull out too. It's one of my favorite days of the year is going mothing with them.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Sam,
Yeah.
for being here and doing the presentation today. Yeah, you're getting all sorts of praise in the chat, so thank you.
Yeah, more than happy to. It is so fun and just so much that parks get from master naturalists as well.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay.
And again,
Yep.
we'll have our next TMN Tuesday event in June, the second Tuesday of the month. And I'll have Ben's presentation, his links that he mentioned, and the recording from today up on our website, if not by this afternoon, first thing tomorrow morning. So thank you very much.